Welcome back to Made Up of Wires, where we are decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Appreciate everybody who has joined in the past. Had a nice most of the week off last week. We'll keep going on one of the functions that we started yesterday. If you're not familiar with the Castlevania Symphony of the Night decompilation project, I'm just a contributor. I enjoy Symphony of the Night, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't spend so much time working on it. But I am just somebody who likes to decompile things. Symphony of the Night's one of my faves. You can go to soten.z.dev to learn more about the project and join us in Discord, or go to GitHub and see some of the stuff that we've decompiled here on the stream, as well as all the other work that all the excellent decompilers have been working on as well. Actually, Mark Street, who has worked on Splat 64, decomp.me and other things like that, joined in one of the conversations we were having about automated splitting. I've showed some of that work here, and some of it's not going as well as I would hope. So lots of people who are big deals in the decomp community join us in our Discord. And in general, I think we have a really good project going. I'm not sure if it's one of the larger PlayStation projects, but by volume, we certainly have a lot of code. There are other PlayStation decomp projects that I'm not part of, but this is the one I am part of, and this one that I like to stream. Go to soten.z.dev and you'll see all kinds of stuff, including progress on the overlays. I haven't added the overlays to this page, but if you do go to the Discord server, I showed this, not Discord, of course, GitHub. I showed this last week. There was a particular YouTube video that a bunch of us were made aware of. Mott came on the channel and let us know about it, that said we were almost done. So I added all the overlays, and this shows that we're not almost done. Some other people are working on a broader progress page as well. In SLUS, this is the main entry point on the disk. So when the PlayStation loads your disk, it looks for a file that has the same, what's it called? There's a unique identifier for each disk. SLUS 0.67 is the one for Symphony of the Night. That product code is embedded in some of the table of contents metadata, I think. Or maybe it's some of the ISO 8601. 8601 is the time standard. I forget what the ISO standard is for CD file systems. But there's a reference to this file, and basically that tells the PlayStation which disk or which file to load as the starting point. This is where, if you're familiar with C, the main function is, which is the primary entry point for most C programs. And it contains any of the PlayStation SDK stubs that maybe are BIOS functions that are overridden. Maybe they're just BIOS functions that are indirected by one layer. And then some small loader code for the rest of the game. And the rest of the game is in DRA.bin, which is the primary game engine. So we have a few things left that are in that SLUS. We're not going to look at those today, but that's primarily PlayStation SDK functions. And what's nice about doing the PlayStation SDK functions is those apply to just about every PlayStation game. Symphony of the Night is PlayStation SDK 3.5, I believe. It's called SciQ 3.5. Serial number. Look, it's right there. Serial number. SLUS 00067. We've been working on BO4 and RBO5. These are Doppleganger 10 and Doppleganger 40. They're part of the boss overlays. Bosses are the same as stages, except that they have a boss in them. So we get a lot of the stage code in there duplicated. We get a lot of the, in this case for Doppelganger, a lot of Alucard and Richter code as well, because that Boss has implemented basically the same as a la carte. So we get a lot of things that are tweaked slightly. And that's what we've been looking at here is one function in particular. I don't remember the name of it, but we'll go and find it. I think it was like a ceiling collision function is the one we were working on Thursday. We'll take a look at that, and it's just slightly different. And so we can base a lot of the decomp on the a la carte version of that code. And we'll do it first for BO4, and then hopefully it'll apply cleanly for RBO5 as well, which is Doppleganger 40. I did want to call out, I watched just this morning, I saw it over the weekend and didn't watch it. One of the guys I've been following for a while, John Lester, Gamester81 on YouTube, he had a video where he's just letting the community know that he was diagnosed with a rare heart condition. And so thoughts and prayers go out to John. I met him just briefly at Game On Expo a couple months ago. I went down on Thursday afternoon to get my badge and decided to walk as much of the convention center as they'd allow me to walk beforehand, just see where I was going to be presenting and all that. And John Lester happened to be walking by. He was very busy, looked a little stressed because things were going to be opening up the next day. But I still butted in and said, "Hi, John." Shook his hand. Much bigger in real life than on YouTube. YouTube is slimming for John Lester. He's a giant of a man. Very kind. Took time out just to say hi, and then was off. And that's the only interaction that I've had with John. But it was definitely a pleasure to meet him. Somebody I've been watching on YouTube for years and years, and so anytime I think you get to see somebody that you're a fan of in real life is really cool. So thoughts and prayers to John. I hope that he's getting, it sounds like he's getting the care that he needs, and that since he's being seen, prognosis is more positive. Definitely prayers for his family and everybody else in the community. He's such a warm and welcoming individual, and I think he makes it a great place for a lot of people. So that's all I'll say about John. Good luck, John, and I hope that things work out well. All right, so we got to get back to where we were working. Unfortunately, it looks like my browser has decided to reload tabs like it does from time to time. So I will need to find where things were. 81% doesn't seem too far off from where this was. So yeah, this is the CheckCeiling function in DRA. DRA's version of all these functions are going to be a la carte specific, whereas BO4 and RBO5, they're going to be Doppleganger specific. So we have a bunch of macros, we have a bunch of global data and other things like that that need to be switched to point to the right structs. I believe this is the PSP version, which is helpful as well. PSP version is nice because the code is unoptimized, and so we get a better sense of individual parts that we need. But I think what was the most helpful was the DRA version of this. So I think I'm going to work. Our target is the PlayStation 1 Doppleganger 10 implementation of this function. But we have the PlayStation 1 Doppleganger 40 implementation, and we have the PSP versions of both of those as well. So 4 functions total that we could be looking at to decompile this one instance. Primarily focusing on Doppleganger 10 on the PlayStation 1. But I think I'm going to do most of the work here in the PSP version. And I have some other stuff that I've been working on, and I think I'm just going to shut all this down, and that may or may not cause problems. We'll see. I could go over, do a quick update on that as well. Hopefully I don't delete any of this other stuff that I've been working on when I clean these environments. I don't think I will, but we'll see. A lot of stuff open. That's how I like to work. Too many tabs. So I've mentioned this in the past. We used a tool called Splat, originally Splat 64, which was for splitting and rebuilding files from Nintendo 64 programs. Nintendo 64 is built on a MIPS processor just like the PlayStation is. Slightly different versions of MIPS. But we can use Splat for PlayStation as well. One of the major differences is when you have an N64 binary, you have one ROM, and all of your code, assets, data, everything related to that game exists in that one ROM. And that was kind of how Splat was built. When you have a PlayStation game, you only get 2 megabytes that you can load into memory at a time. Some of that is not even available for completely for the overlays. So you can only load parts of files or single files in typically at a time, and those files are streamed to memory, and then you load them in Symphony of the Night. What that means is when you're going through the red door, as you pass through the one on the opposite side that you entered, the new stage data will be loaded and overwrite the stage data from the stage that you previously were in. When that happens, you load in a new file, we call it overlay, a new bin, binary file. And for the PlayStation version, there's 60 of them. So a N64 game is going to have one ROM, regardless of what game it is. There's no multi-cartridge games that I'm aware of for the N64. 2D sprite-based game, which might be considered small. It's not particularly small, but could be considered a smaller game. Has 60 different overlays, ranging in size from 64K up to 200 some K each. So that's kind of the environment that we have to work in. Every time we get a new stage, we have to create a new Splat config. So there's been some tooling that's been added for that, and I've been working on trying to optimize that tooling. One of the hardest things to do is figure out where different file offsets are. And so I've been working on a tool called MIPS Match to do just that, find where those offsets are. And it actually can produce all of the offsets that that file should be split on based on previous work that has been done on that same game, or possibly other games. However, when you split into different C files, which is what this is doing, normally it would split into blitchar, ecollect, stcommon, etc. The RO data needs to be associated with each of those segments as well, and my tool does not yet create the appropriate RO data segments. And because of that, I needed to just comment out all these segments. And so the tool still is generating all this. We do have other tooling that will find many of these as well. But the MIPS match tooling does this without really having to know anything about the game, just the things that you've already decompiled. So I was kind of hoping to get this in. Unfortunately, I think it's going to have to wait. Let's see what I have that's broken, what I have that's missing. I should update this. I'll probably just I want the MIPS match. I don't want to check that out. So I'm going to, I guess I'll try stashing, and then we'll move on to RB05. And let me see what what may have happened there. So it looks like I'm up to date. Let me just make sure. Yeah, that looks recent. And I'm going to start a make clean. Let me do this in another tab. I don't want to create a new one. I'll create a new one. I want a clean build, but we don't need to sit and watch that. What I want to do instead is find the CheckCeiling function in DRA. That's where we started. Because we can use that I before E. We can use this as the kind of the primary driver for the decomp that we have. So I'm going to be referencing this. You can get to this on, in GitHub as well. It would be in source, DRA. And this was 6BF64. These files are just named based on the offsets. Let's see, 6B. There we go. And this might be a slightly nicer way to look at it. There we go. And so I'm going to pull this out and use this for my own reference while we're doing this. So there are a few differences here. So what I want to do, I want to do this. I'm going to put this one next to this other. Come on. And I'll flip back and forth and kind of point out what I'm interested in the original as I find it. All right. So it looks like we probably were right around looking at the instructions. Primarily, I'm interested in instructions. I'll worry about registers and other things later. Things like this, where there are red differences between the two sides. This is what we're trying to produce with our code. On the left, in this center column, and then this is what we're currently producing with our code. So we see there's some missing instructions. At the moment, I'm not worried about those. Those are likely due to register mismatches, possibly some other things. So I'm going to skip those. What I want to do is find things like this down on line 72, where there may or may not be something else. This one I'm actually not concerned about either. This is this masked effects variable is getting written to the stack at offset hex 50, so that'd be offset 80 bytes into the stack, and then getting loaded right back again. And the compiler does that because it thinks that it needs to save that for some other reason later, but then loads it right back instead of storing it in a register. So I'm not concerned about that one either, because as registers get figured out, as variables get reduced, that will work itself out as well. This is probably the first thing that I would look at down here on 89. So we have assigned less than immediate. However, the instructions that were generated, and then a branch if equal to 0, which is was this not less than? What we haven't said is this equal to 2? Load immediate 2, and then branch if the variable is equal. Excuse me. So we'll go look at that. It looks like a condition that is just not correct. And that is around line 89. And okay, so it's part of this switch. And our the way that this code originally looked, I thought this might be a switch, but I don't think the DRA version has a switch here. And we can go find that. So we're doing a check for collider effects. Are any of these flags, basically mask these flags out, and then if we mask all those flags out, are 800 and solid set, but O2 is not set. So that's what we'll look for in the DRA version, where that might be happening. And we might not actually find that. Actually, we will. It's here. And we see that code. I looked at this originally, and to me it looked like a switch. Sometimes when we look at the initial decomp, it's not terribly obvious, but this one is. So this should be a relatively straightforward change. So we're changing this to, if I is less than 2, we're going to do some logic. Otherwise, we're going to do this other logic. And that's going to be the same as this default case. And then we can get rid of that, and we should see, hopefully, instructions start to look a little closer. Oops. Oh, print. So we got those instructions correct now. If less than 2, branch. Otherwise, we're going to continue down and do this logic. All right, then on 92, we're missing a bunch of code. What are we missing? Let's again go back over here and see what's happening. So we have a, we're setting a VRAM pointer to a specific value. We're setting the Y position to this particular offset. Do we have code that looks like that here? No, it's coming from varv1. varv1 looks like it was something that got removed accidentally later, or prior. So let's take that. It looks like it's collider unknown 20. And probably this ceiling collider as well. And we can look at the M2C decomp. And make sure that that's okay. We're not going to be doing G-player, though. We're going to be doing G-dop. So did the Doppleganger hit the ceiling? Did the Doppleganger hit the floor? But the code there looks reasonable as well. Our offsets are not quite correct, but that's due to the stack pointer. Not concerned with that. So I think this looks okay. We could go over and look at M2C and what it decompiled there originally, if we can find it. That can be tricky. I think it's this here. So that looks close-ish. Stack pointer 5C is going to be the same as collider unknown 20. So I think, oh, this is interesting. M2C for the PlayStation, or PSP, sorry. It did come up with a switch as well. So it's not just me thinking that it's a switch. M2C came up with the same thing. but those look mostly the same. And so somebody else has obviously gone through this already and determined that this wasn't a switch. Sometimes, though, they compile to the same things, and you just don't know what it's going to be. So I'm guessing these are the same. VARS1 is the same as our... oh, they have a separate variable for VARS1. It's collider effects. And it may very well be a separate variable. Here it's called SP3C, which to me suggests that it's part of the collider struct. So I'm going to leave it like it is and go back and look at what might be missing. This temp v1 underscore 2 was a variable before, and it's not. I must have accidentally deleted that as well. So let's look at what that is. This is just 801. And these are collision effects, and so we can. So that's going to be effect unknown 800. As well as effect solid. And we should be able to get back here and see the same thing. Still not quite right. There's a load immediate 2 that's missing. So this... And again, let's look at... Yeah. Again, this is, I think, why I thought it was a switch. When you have things like this where it's, if this is less than 2, and then we're checking against 2, and then we're checking against 3, that looks awful switchy. But this doesn't, and we know that I starts at 1, so really there's just one case for this, which is I equal to 1, I equal to 0 is not a thing. So default actually would just fall through. This actually enumerates all 3 cases in the loop. But that works as well. Load word at these offsets, stack pointers versus registers. Deal with that later. All right, so here is a big chunk that we have that isn't there right now. What is it so upset about? It looks like most of that condition is not present. Let's look at what we have here. So VARS1 is collider effects. So they're saying if we mask it with 800, does it equal effect none or 0? And yeah, this does look quite a bit different. The I less than 2 does not seem to be there. No, it is there. That is there. It could be this load. We have a masked load, masked effects, or just effects up here. And we are checking it against this. So this does look different from above. That looks better. $124. Most of this I don't think has been looked at yet. This var s3_2 not being used anywhere. So this is superfluous. On the PSP, what's nice is because there's no optimizer, this is a dead store, but the PSP generates the code. It expects the optimizer to come through later and remove it since it doesn't do anything, but there's nothing to remove it. So we get the code generated, which tells us that that's wrong. We could have that code there on the PlayStation, and it would just be there, not actually do anything, not even have code generated for it that runs on the PlayStation, but we have C code for it. I'm going to take what's here. I like to do this periodically. Paste it into the PlayStation, make sure that we're getting closer as we get closer on the PSP. 87%, which is good. If you haven't been on the stream before, or haven't watched, and not familiar with how Symphony of the Night is implemented, most versions of the game are implemented using exactly the same code. There are tweaks here and there. Zianimo would say 99% of the code, maybe Sozu D as well, would say 99% of the code is the same. That's typically true. And so what you want to do, the PSP is the most sensitive to which code will produce the right assembly. And so we want to focus on getting it right for the PSP, because usually that will be correct as well for the PlayStation. Not always, but usually. 127 as far a 0. Looks like it was a optimization on the PlayStation side. Basically, let's get this immediate value into a register as quickly as possible. No, it's actually not. Never mind. The only difference is that there's a register, or not. My guess is that this load 0, the store 0, is somewhere else. Let's look. So we want to see where, it's down here. Where is the move or load happening for register S1? And it looks like wrong focus. Looks like it's happening down here. And the PlayStation will do that. It'll pull up things like, if it thinks that it looks at this loop and sees we have, in this case, 2 cases. What is going to be the more 2 iterations through this loop? What is going to be the more common iteration? It chose the 0. And so it's going to throw it outside the branch, because loading that 0, if it succeeds and doesn't have to branch here, is going to be slightly cheaper. Might have been up in the branch delay slot. I didn't look. A few other things up here. So there's a second load to the ceiling column that appears to be slightly different. Let's reference the original. Oh, this is actually nice as well. I will steal this part of it. The condition for the outer if statement is inverted, and the function's returned from early. And that reduces nesting, which is nice. And it looks like the same thing is happening here as well. If the velocity is greater than 0, we're going to return, because we don't need to do any of this other stuff. And so we can get rid of an entire level of nesting. And that shouldn't affect code generation. It may not. But it when I say code generation, I mean the generation of the assembly. That's called cogen. But it makes the C code much easier to follow and understand, and keeping it as close to that DRA implementation as possible is nice as well. Oh, I spelled that wrong. It's an underscore. And hopefully we can fix up some of these variable names as well. The variable names in the original DRA version aren't my favorite. It looks like we're looking at 2 or 3, not necessarily both. Some of these, it may be nice to I don't know how this is working. Start with the DRA version and edit from there. This one actually ended up being very close, so that probably would have worked. Whatever reason, it didn't show up in the dupes report as being similar enough, but it actually ended up looking that way. All right, so it looks like instead of grabbing 2 and 3, we're grabbing either 2 or 3, and then doing some math based on those. So let's try that. And those look like they're falling in now as well. We're up to 90%, which is great. 155. These seem a little more obvious. What I'm going to do here is try to recompose this. I'm not going to look at the DRA version, but I'll recompose it, and then it should, I think, just end up being a plus equals bar v1. Actually, I see that. That's what it is now. And then we can get rid of a bunch of these. A bunch of these variables. SP30, we'll look at what that is, because usually that is part of one of the colliders. Yeah, unknown 20 in the collider. And as we get rid of those vars, our stack should start shrinking, and we should start getting closer and closer to correct register usage. All right, so we have temp v1 greater than 0. Temp v1 was something about the collider we don't know yet. Oh, this is interesting. Unknown 4 versus unknown C. Should make sure that that is correct as well. Yeah, unknown 4, unknown C. So that's our var A1. And it looks like that was an else if. Yeah. Okay, so I think that was basically the last of the major changes. I would expect this to be much closer, maybe 97 or 98% on the PlayStation. We have a bunch of register issues. It looks like most of the instructions are correct. There's loads, which means loads and stores back to the stack, which means we have too many variables. The MetroWorks non-optimized version for the PSP is not going to be trying to fix any of that at all. GCC will. And so I'd expect this to be relatively high. It's not relatively high. Ooh. Oof. So we got to go through and figure out what's going on. I'm still not going to focus on the PlayStation version. I think the best use of this, way too much on the stack still. The best option is still going to be going to the PSP and seeing how many of these vars are still here and mapping those to what is currently being done in DRA. Because not only will that get us closer to DRA, but will it'll be slightly easier to follow. So they did end up using TempFP for that as well. RS2 is effects. Do we still have a var S2? I think we can use effects for this. And I want to see, so it's var S2 in DRA. Are we using here, 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 here? Basically four uses of var S2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, 5. Okay. And we'll have an extra. SP30. SP30 is, we just figured that out a little while ago. That was Collider Unknown 20. I'm going to go through and get rid of all the variables that are not used currently. Var A0, should rename that. But I will not worry about that quite yet. So var v1 underscore 2 is being used, but var v1 is not. All right, so we were at 95, down to 93. Oh no. Our stack size, though, is correct now. We have a bunch of variables that are looking like they're in the wrong order. We could go through and fix that. It's likely that a bunch of these are being either reused when they shouldn't be or not reused when they should be. Yeah, it mostly looks like stack issues. I'm going to save this. Try it again on the PlayStation, hoping for a little better. Yeah, 95. There we go. There we go. That's what I thought the first one would do. Or the change previous to this. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do? First, I'm going to look to see if num horizontal sensors is set. It is. This was actually incorrect. It should have been less than 4, not 5. I have this other version open on the side. I'm going to be skimming it. I'm not going to switch back and forth unless somebody chats and says, "Can you switch back and forth?" I'm going to be going through, looking at variables, trying to track for myself that I'm using them in all the same ways and all the same places. So instead of RS2, my variable is called effects, which I think is a slightly, actually masked effects would be a little better here, but that's okay. argx and argy, I have posx and posy. Doppleganger status is a little different than player status. No, it's not actually. It's the step that's off by 1. I always mix those up. So this is Doppelganger in NIST. Oh, come on. And let's make sure we're following along up here as well. So on 48, where there's a difference, the arg0, so this last argument to check collision, for some reason, is being... what's going on? For some reason, these arguments are getting loaded in a slightly different way. So these are ceiling sensors, but a different set than the global ceiling sensors. I don't know why. It appears maybe there's player versus entity ceiling sensors, or they're, I don't know, they're specific to the Doppelganger stage for some reason. Okay, so here is where we first are pushing something into the stack that shouldn't be. This is var S1 in the original. And it's used down here as well. There's a little bit of a difference between how the VRAM pointer is dealt with. So let's get down here and check this. So in the DRA version, Oh, I'm looking at the wrong place. Oh, this is a different check floor is a very similar function. So we should be able to do that one quickly. If I was going to do it again, I would probably just take the DRA implementation and then switch it. All right, so we're here. All right, so we have mass effects and then mass effects down here. And then during this shift business, we're also using that variable. Down here as well. And we're getting much closer. It looks like that probably collapsed the stack. That's my hope anyway. Okay, so I think that's probably fine. What I want to do is there's still a couple other variables that are wrong. I want to see if there's any other stack things getting pushed to the stack that shouldn't be. 132. We're using a stack var there instead, so let's find that. So this is var s2. And var s2 was the same as our effects variable. So that should work the same. Yeah, I don't see any difference there, but I am going to. Hey, Chaos. Not a modder. I have done some just small mods to show off what we can do with the decompiled source. That would be difficult to do with the current way that the like randomizer community is doing things. But that's the extent of my modding. Send them over. Eldritch and Mott and Nate the Great from speedrunners and modding randomizer community, they show up quite a bit. So yeah, if there's others. Oh, really? Is it? Does he post on YouTube? I think I've had a few talks with one of the guys on YouTube who's re-implementing a bunch of stuff. I was going through one of the functions for the pentagram weapon, and I think he showed up that day and was talking about how he figured out a bunch of how that worked. All right, so we need a few more tweaks to get this to work. Let me see if any of these are still there. var A0, I'm going to rename to the same thing as the DRA version. This is Doppleganger 10. Oh, Nate the Great. Yeah. Nate the Great stops by quite a bit. A friend of Nate is a friend of Made Up of Wires for sure. he has shown me a lot of the arbitrary code execution. All right. Have you done modding in the past, Chaos? And let me. So one of the things that should I check this on PS1? Yeah, so we're still at 96. There's this odd 801 up here. So what's happening is GCC's coming in and saying, I want to pull this constant up because it's being used a bunch. I'll throw it in a register and then we can use that later. That's not happening in the original. So there's something that I'm doing that shouldn't be there. Yeah, I think that's a lot of why I do it as well. You want to know what it does, how it works. Let me... Okay, I'm going to go over here. Some of these variables I may not need anymore. Yeah, collider ceiling I think was no longer necessary. I originally thought that that was going to be a reference, but it turned out to be these position XY pointers. Dop state I don't think is a thing anymore either. These don't affect the stack at all. So I'm not too worried about those. We can try to figure out position X, Y, and VRAM flag. So for the MetroWorks, the order of these, of all the 32-bit variables, are going to be affected for their order of declaration. And so that can be helpful to figure out. It is getting put into S0. Dop X should be S7. And Dop Y is S6. Put those backwards. Nope, I did them correct. VRM flag is S8. Looks like those are probably further down. I'm going to move them to the end. Yeah, so sometimes mucking with the ordering fixes MetroWorks. Do you hang out in the Long Library Discord? '27. There's this S3, S4 register. I think that may just be ephemeral. I don't see anything in the original DRA code that suggests that any of this gets written to a register or a variable. And we're getting the same behavior here, S3, S4. S1 on line 36. That looks like effects. we're using S1. There's S2 in the original. We can just verify as well that those are all being used the same way in the same places. And it looks like they are. So as long as that's the same, that should be fine. Let's look for... so we have 0, 2. Let's find 1. And where 1 is being used. There 1 is R2. Our 2, which is masked effects. And so we can see if we can force the right ordering. Yeah, it didn't work. There must be something else going on with that as well. It's odd, and I wouldn't have believed it had I not seen it. But MetroWorks behaves that way. 60 is the VRAM flag pointer, which we have as S8. I have that already. That's good. We have it as S3. S6 and 7, those are accounted for already. So we need 3, 4, and 5. 3, I think, was the ephemeral one. Yeah, here. So there is no variable associated with that. 4 is 44. Pause X. This might suggest this is a 32-bit, but the sign extension says otherwise. S5. We're using S6, so this... yeah, let's go down to 122. var A1. And let me, if I switch that to a sign 32, I'm expecting to get a bunch of instructions. Yeah, a bunch of sign extensions that we shouldn't get. I am going to... So it looks like it allocates the pointers separately, which is interesting. S1 here, this might help as well. On 125... yeah, that would work. We can use masked effects for var A0. Okay, so that gets rid of, I think, all the register spillover. So really it's just register order now. Let me make sure I'm not speaking out of turn. But if it's just register order, that should mean the PlayStation should be fine. But it's no different on the PlayStation. So there still is something more. No, var A0 is gone now. Let's look at var V1_2. That's in the same mass 122. That's S5. All right, so let's... Oh, S5. S5 was var A1. We have that. Am I reading that wrong? No, it's not S5. It spills over to the register. Okay, so this is offset 34, which is fine. So we do need to fix the ordering for these. I am going to position Y. Oh, it's not used. That's why it's not used. No, it is 44. I want to see if that gets spilled over as well. It does not. It's register S4. So I have this wrong. This is S4. And this S5. So var A1 is S5 as well. So var A1 should be pos X. And that does make sense. That breaks a whole bunch, though. Return here is not necessary. Oh, no, it is. It could be a break, I guess. Yeah, so that didn't end up working out the way that I wanted. I will leave those as returned. I want to look one more time over here. I'm a little bummed, I think, about this implementation. There is some of these vars were just left as really. I do this as well, but I try to name my variables as best I can. When they're left as names like temp fp, it doesn't tell you much. It does look like the order of the addition, and this may be... Oh, they use grouping in the original to force the ordering. So I'm not too concerned. So we have register differences. Those register differences may or may not be causing issues. Oh. So pos X and pos Y. All right, so can we fix those? I'm going to do something a little strange. I'm going to actually look at the ordering of these variables compared to the DRA implementation and assume that DRA is correct. And these may... so the pointers appear to be in a different class. So my impression of how MetroWorks does this is that they group variables based on size, but also based on type. So the pointers are going to be allocated to registers separately from 32-bit values, separately from 16-bit values, separately from structs. I'm going to try to match the ordering here as best I can. Often this is kind of in inverse order. They only have two 16-bit values, and I have 3. var A1, oh no, they have 3. var A1. Is it getting any better? Nope, no change. The other thing that they do that's slightly different, I never know when this is going to work and when it's not going to work in GCC, is they're doing the variable assignment during declaration. And I feel like in C89, I'm never sure of the rules for when you can do this. I guess as long as the expression is constant, it should be fine. This ordering makes sense with how the code is executed, so I guess as long as you can declare the variables at the same time, that should be fine. That does seem okay. Var S1 in the original is the same as my effects. Temp v1 is the same as temp v1 underscore 2. I will rename, or var v1 underscore 2. I will rename that to temp v1 to match. The ordering here is a little different too in the DRA version. So I will change that to match as well. Var S1 is the same as masked effects. I just want to make sure that I have that in all the right places. Oh, here's one that's missing. This may be it. This may be what is missing. Here's cross. Ooh, much worse. But I think that's correct. So what can you do? Oh, sucks. That was really bad. Let's go look at that and see why that didn't work. Oh, because did I do the right one? Yeah, I did the right one. No, I didn't. It should just be effects. So the ones down here should just be effects as well then. Let's see this. Let's grab what it originally was, which was this Dop Ceiling Eye effects. I'm looking at the wrong place. This was incorrect. This was incorrect. Okay, so now it's back to what it should be. Okay, so what else could be going on? So it's possible there was a mask there that I missed along the way. It could be something small like that. It could be ordering. I'm going to go through again, and really it just looks like register differences, but there could be any little thing that causes that. It could be as simple as inverting a condition. See any instruction differences. I don't see. I haven't been looking closely at the immediate differences. There could be a branch that is incorrect, and we'd see that in the branch offset. Here it is, line 58. So line 58, we need to get the equivalent in DRA. So we're grabbing the effects, VRAM flag, not that, and looks like the return is down here. So registers still aren't completely fixed, but that does fix that offset. Here's another one, 72. All right, so the logic here is the return is down here. We're getting super close. Oh, and the registers got fixed. This might be it. I think this is it. There's going to be other immediate differences that have to do with symbols that are different between the PSP, and that's it. That was it. The PSP and the PlayStation, but also what decomp.me can understand versus what the compiler can see. So I think that was it. I think just those two conditions that were wrong. I'm going to get rid of these notes about where all the registers should be. I don't think it actually affected anything this time. You never know, though. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. Collapse all these. I'm going to go over here. Let's make sure that built. It did not build. try again. There is still some race conditions in the build. It looks like that's just what was hit this time. So we're looking for 3 EEC. I think that there's only one global that doesn't have a symbol name that's referenced here, and we can give it a symbol name and then go find the RBO5 version of that symbol. We're in source boss BO4. Grep works better recursively when you're looking for things like this. That's in the Doppleganger C file. What am I doing? Get rid of that. Open Doppleganger. EEC. So we're replacing our include ASM line with our new function. And I added an extra symbol for reasons I don't know. Why would I type in S0? So not completely sure that this will compile, but we'll give it a shot and see. Does not. But only one issue. We have offset 7.2 versus 7C at 442C. Oh, let's let's figure out what instruction that is. So super close. Not quite there. We will get it though. All right, so it looks like we were here. So it is a branch. We're branching to the wrong place. So we have another immediate branch going to the wrong offset somewhere around a constant 800. So let's look over here. So we want, it may be an 800, it may be something else. That is 8,000. We may have converted this already. Yeah, maybe one of these. Oh, I bet it's this here, 1143. The pointer dot X, and this return probably falls outside of this. So, oh, this is a different function. All right, let's go back over here and carefully scan for an immediate difference that is just a number and not a symbol. Here we go. 109. So 109 is branching to the wrong place in the second condition. So it's possible that this not is not there. Let's try that. Or it's an and. So let's try that. Not an and. Let's look at what the original was. It's just inverted. No, that's not it either. All right, so it's a check against these two. Oh, another one where we can exit early. And that was it. All right, so let's do that. Let's save. Let's go back over here. We'll get rid of. And we match. So we got another one. Nice big one. This should, so this is the CheckCeiling function. I'm gonna set this symbol. So symbols US plus BO4. We will call this CheckCeiling. Ooh, should we? We're gonna do an overlay export. So this will be BO4 CheckCeiling. And then re-extract. And I think we'll go through and do the same thing for RBO5, but I'm not going to do that on the stream. I'm going to sign off after I do that. So we need symbols, US, BO, RBO5. And it's going to be check ceiling, spelled correctly. And that one's going to be in the Doppleganger. So I expect this to be the same implementation. And we'll call this RBO5 CheckCeiling. The only difference between these two is going to be that this symbol for the ceiling. So let's give this also a OVL exported name. We'll call that G sensor ceiling. Should we? The reason we want to give it a unique name, we don't know where it is yet. We want to give it a name that doesn't overlap because there's collisions when linking. If we link all these things together, that's going to be relevant to the Xbox 360 version as well as I'll rename this slightly, as well as any like future ports to systems where we can compile this into a single binary. And RBO5 may fail to build. It looks like we do have references to this that need to be fixed. And that's possibly something that should be pulled out into a header. Okay, let's find this symbol in RBO5 as well. Not as straightforward, but we should be able to do it pretty easily. I'm going to add the symbol there. We don't know what the address is yet. I'm going to take the address here, find out where it is in the ASM line 65. So we're going to get the RBO5 version. Non-matchings, Doppleganger, right? Should be in Funk. Well, that ends in C3-4EC. And so right around line 65, 66. So this is our address here. And we can search for that address. See if we've seen that already. We have. So now we can replace any of those automatic symbols with sensor ceiling. And that should be the only global, I think, that this references. Which means what's it upset about? Oh, we just need to touch this to get it to rebuild. And that should be fine. All right, so let's look at the CheckCeiling and see if we can just take that implementation now from BO4, because all the symbols are the same. And that worked as well. So we have another 2 done, and those are 2 big ones. Those are, we don't have a ton left here, but those are 2 of the bigger ones. See if I still have my handy dandy find command. I do. So 5SC and 2AC I have done in a different branch. I need to merge those in. 3EEC is the one we just did. So 15, so we have 12 left. Doppelganger entity player blink white, that's going to be a rather long one to do. Entity mist also. The other one should be relatively manageable. CB O, I believe, is or collision check floor. So we should be able to do quickly. I don't know what HCO is. So those are the only remaining 3 in the Doppleganger file. So that seems like it's doable this week. I'm going to merge as many of these in as possible. And then I'll try to get a PR out later tonight. I have some other things that I need to do as well, but I think that's where we're at. Go to soten.z.dev to learn more about the Castlevania Symphony of the Night decompilation project. I'll be back decompiling more tomorrow. We'll do another Doppelganger function and hopefully knock this out. I will merge all my branches together and try to get this done as well. That's it. That's all I got for you. Adios. See you tomorrow.